perfect. Welcome. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our series of the webinars. Let's wait maybe a few seconds to start, to people to join us, and then we can launch the webinar. Okay, perfect. So once again, good morning, everyone. I'm Izabela Zrazinska, the Senior Project Manager from FundingBox, and I would like to welcome all of you in our second webinar from our series on that is dedicated to digital innovation hubs, and it's focused on the artificial intelligence adoption in your region that we would like to help you to boost through the Cascade Funding. And this webinar is organized by FundingBox under the projects, under collaboration with the projects BonSAPS and Starway. And as I already mentioned, this is the second of the series, so I'd like to welcome all of you that has already attended the previous one that was led by Maite Caracedo from FundingBox, where we have introduced you the idea of the Cascade Funding, and we have also showed you what Cascade Funding opportunities are for the SMEs and for technologies in your region. So in case you're interested, you can always also have a look in our community to the video from that webinar. And today we'll go more into the details. So we would like to show you on how to find the best opportunities, but also how to write the winning application, so you can actually support the SMEs in your region to apply to such opportunities. So here you can see the agenda. We'll give you some tips. We have also invited the expert from one of the digital innovation hubs that are from our ecosystem to tell you on how to actually win the funding opportunities. And at the end, I will tell you a bit more about the compliance and administrative part of this of the proposals. So today's webinar will be led by Graciela Garrido, that is Head of Sales at FundingBox, but she's also engaged in the digitalization ecosystem, and she's working with many digital innovation hubs. So I hope many of you probably already know her, and she will introduce later on her speakers and her guests of the webinar. Some house rules before we start. So you're all automatically muted, but you can, of course, you're more than invited to write your questions in the chat box. At the end of each speaking slot, we will have the Q&A slots. Also, we would like to ask you to change your name and, well, to put your real name and surname, so we also could know who you are. And this webinar is recorded, so for your information. And if you have any technical problems, you can write in the chat to our technical team that is called Innovations Webinar, okay, and they can help you if any technical problems occurs. And before we start, I also wanted to remind you, to invite you, as I already mentioned, this webinar series is funded, well, is organized through the BonSAPS and Starway projects, and we have launched this initiative also to gather the information and the voice from digital innovation hubs about the main challenges in your regions that could be solved with AI. So here in the chat you can see the link to the poll that we really would like to ask you to fill. Okay, it will take maximum 7 up to 10 minutes. And there there are a few questions, first of all, on what are the main challenges for AI adoption in your region, but also there's another short section where we would like to ask you what are your needs. And based on this survey, we'll create the public report that we hope also will become a voice to European Commission and will be also sent to all the participants. So yes, if you have time, we would really appreciate if you could fill this short survey. And with no further delay, sorry, I forgot to mention that there's also a question about supportive partners. So if you like these webinars and you would like to keep in contact with us, you can also mark there that you would like to become a supportive partner, and then we will also contact you with the further details. So that was all for this. So I pass the voice to Graciela, who's leading this webinar, and that will continue with the full content. Thank you.
Thank you, Isa. Okay. I'm going to show my screen, and let's start with the presentation. Okay, great. Well, as Isa said, I would like to show you how to win Cascade Funding with some tips for filling the proposal. So before to start, only a reminder, because I know that most of you already know us, who is FundingBox. FundingBox is a digital platform supporting innovation to access to funding and technological ecosystem. So basically, we are involved in a lot of proposals and projects related to the Cascade Funding that was already explained by my colleague Maite in the previous session. And today, as Isa mentioned, we are going to focus in the tips for winning Cascade Funding. So let's move to the tips. I don't want to bother you with, spending time with another issue that the core of this webinar for today. So basically, I would like to explain you what is the recipe for cooking a successful proposal. And I must confess that I saw the cooking mode because during the COVID, I have time to discover my passion about cooking. So I would like to show you the ingredients for winning a proposal. But before the recipe, I would like to share with you some general information and some content that is very interesting and you need to know before you start your application. I will come back to some of these issues during the recipe, but I would like to highlight these issues before. So basically, I would like to remind you that before applying to any open call related to the Cascade Funding, there is some reference document that you need to know and you need to read because they are the guidelines for your application. So these are the three main documents that you need to know: the call for applicants, the guide for applicants, but also the application template. And there are even other documents, for instance, the evaluation guide or the Q&A's document that can support you and guide you during the application. This is the starting point for preparing your proposal. Additionally, I would like to remind you that there are a lot of support available for you as applicants in order to prepare a successful proposal. The first two supports are the info days and the webinars and the Q&As. They are, generally speaking, all the Cascade Funding projects are including this kind of support for the applicants with specific tips, with explanations about the concrete form to be filled, what is expected for each part of the proposal. And the third one is very specific for the FundingBox project. As you know, we have the communities. Most of the projects are community related to the project and a specific space to help desk and to support the applicants. So in this help desk, you can find, specific questions for other participants, other applicants that they are solved within the space. But also we are including this kind of content in the Q&A. So we are updating the Q&A from time to time in order to incorporate all these questions coming from the participants within the space, but also during the info days and the webinars. So basically, this is the general things I would like to support you. We are facing online applications. You can see here an example of the project that which are sponsored the event for today. So basically, this is online, 100% online. In our case, it's through our tool, through FundingBox tool, but in other cases are online, but through mail or through a specific platform. In any case, there are some general information if you want to apply to a FundingBox Cascade Funding project. So these are the steps you need to follow to fill your application. You need to log in or sign up in case you don't have a user in our platform. Start the application clicking the Apply Now button. Then fill the application, and the most important thing is submit your application. I will come back to this after that. And then we are going to follow the ingredients of the proposal, and this is the recipe. There are 6 main ingredients for, for prepare your applications. This is mainly based on our experience as Cascade Funding managers, and after seeing a lot of proposals. Most of them are very good, with very good ideas, but not enough to be funded. So we would like to stress and point out what are the recipes for a winning proposal. In my case, it's in a general way. And then Pedro is going to present a real case of a DIH supporting and winning Cascade Funding projects. So let's move to the recipe. The first ingredient for this recipe is the rationale behind the funding opportunity. This is very, very important. In any kind of recipe, you need to cook in a slow cooking mode. So you need to take your time to become an expert, understanding what is the context of the open innovation call you would like to participate. This means to read all the documents I mentioned at the beginning, so the guide for applicants, the open call, if there is any kind of glossary or guide or whatever you need to read available within the open call. And you need to put yourself in the mindset of the people who are looking for a winning concept, because it's the only way that you will phrase and present a proposal that sticks to the tension that the open call organizers have. So basically, you need to read all the documents. You need to check the website for any kind of update that you have available there. You can attend to the webinars that are from time to time when there is the open call. And the main question that you need to ask you is why I should be funded. This is the most important. Why the project is going to give you money to implement your project or your application. This is the first thing and the most important thing, as I mentioned, is this should be done in a slow cooking mode. This should be done, thinking and reading all the documentation, and be sure that your project fits with the open call purpose and is not out of the range of the applications. The second one is the evaluation mode. You need to be aware that you need to convince the evaluators and the people that is screening your proposal at all stages of the evaluation process that it works. This means that they need to interpret the rationale behind your proposal and decide if it fits the criteria or not. So before you start writing your proposal, you need to think twice. You need to organize and structure your content, the things that you need to stress in your proposal, and structuring very well this kind of content. And it's not only the content itself, it's also the style you need to follow, because if you want to have the best proposal, you need to present it in a clear way. If it's unclear, we can not guarantee that it's succeed. If we think in the recipe and in the cooking mode I explained you before, it's like a cake preparation that can be in the oven, but also can be located in the rubbish. If you have good ingredients but you are not follow the proposal, you are not follow the criteria for evaluation, or you are not explaining very well what do you plan to do, at the end, it's a wrong proposal. So you need to think about all these kind of things. Think on the content, structure the content to be clear for the evaluators, be in mind all the criteria for the evaluators to fill, and think that the evaluators has a small part of their time reading the proposal. So you need to be clear. It's like a startup pitch. You only have 10 minutes to convince a person listen to you why you will get the funding. And then the consortium. And in this part, we cover the consortium, but also the team. As you know, not all the Cascade Funding application or the Cascade Funding open calls are for a consortium. So with this consortium team, we cover both. We cover the ones that is only one entity, asking for the funding, but we can also cover the ones that you need a consortium to apply for the call. In this case, it's very important that you know, for the receipt, it's very important that you select the right partners or the right team members to succeed in cooking the winning sauce. So it's not a question of names or curriculums, but it's a question of complementarity and commitment. You need to design your proposal, your project with a holistic view that integrates balance insight from a variety of backgrounds. So this means the team, from the science to the industry, men and women. So equality is also a good issue to point out in your proposal. In case of consortium from north to the south, or from public to private partners, in case you need to involve all of them. So this is basically the important thing that you need to take into account within the team you are proposing to implement the proposal, or the consortium that you are including in your application. Most important is complementarity, the commitment, and the holistic way to explain what is the purpose of your project. So this is very important in relationship with the expected impact you need to point out in some part of the proposal. And then the innovation, and this is something very, very important. You need to know that this is an innovation, or in general speaking, we are applying to an innovation open calls. So innovation is the core of ingredient of your recipe, and this is a component that is most of the times missing in your proposal. You need to ask you and answer within your proposal, how are you contributing to go beyond the current status quo or the current state of the art in your application field? What makes your approach unique and special in comparison with other potential applicants? How will the effect on your innovation project sustain in the time after the project needs? So these are the critical questions you need to answer and explicitly write in your proposal in a convincing manner. It's not only answer, with your opinions. You need to demonstrate, you need to justify and explain and convince the evaluators for doing that. So it's something that basically is the main failure in the Cascade Funding proposals. Forget that the innovation is the core component of the proposal, the core ingredient of our recipe. So you need to think about that. And you need to think, for instance, that, even if, is something that is proposed before, you need to show the evidence of why your project is innovative. So, it's a question of being in mind what is the innovation of your proposal. This is the core ingredient, and you need to demonstrate why your project is innovative. Then we have the problem-solving approach. As I mentioned before, competing for funding at the end is something very competitive, and it's like a pitch competition. It's not only about your idea, but it's about how to tell the idea and convince evaluators to fund your project. And this is very important to take into account, because the idea sometimes, and taking into account the open call tension or the problems that they stress during the call to be solved, sometimes you have other persons, other projects that they are trying to solve the same project, the same problem. Sorry. So it's not a question of that different projects can solve the problem, the same problem. It's a question of how you are going to solve the problem. Is the main important thing, that other people can have the same idea before or even at the same time, but the different thing is how you are facing to solve this problem with your problem. In this case, as I mentioned, is you are competing with a lot of similar ideas is the way that you explain and you propose to solve. If you think in a recipe or a cake, a lot of people can make a cake, but it's the top and the code that you are putting in your cake what is, the good thing, and this question that can have that you get the funding and the others cannot get the funding. So pivot everything on the problems you will solve with your problem, with logic, in a simple way, and also demonstrate your passion and your knowledge and commitment about, to succeed with your idea. This always contributes to make your story credible and articulate all the pieces of your proposal in the right way. And then finally, the European dimension. We are, in front of a European open call, funding that is including in a European project. So the money came from the European Union, and European Union funding projects are about putting Europe in a leader position in innovation. It's about connecting, the talent and capabilities across Europe to achieve this goal. So even if you are, a single application with only an entity applying for the funding, you need to have in mind this kind of pan-European dimension in your approach. It should be clear from the very beginning that it's a project that is not only solving your problems or improving, your business or your organization problems, but it's also something that is good for Europe, for the European Union as a whole. So you need to demonstrate that you will be able to communicate all the results that you get in the project to a larger audience, and the benefits for the project as general to the European Union. Of course, you are receiving limited money, so you cannot solve and get this general objective of the European Union on your own. But if you think that your project is a drop in the ocean, a lot of drops are able to create waves, and wave and other wave and other wave can, create a solid wave that can be surfed by others in the future. So this means that, you don't need to think in this aspect. This is your support to get the European Union more innovative and a leading position in the world. And then the final touch. The final touch basically is something that is general for all the European proposals. There are some general tips for doing that. So first, ask someone external to read your proposal and give you honest feedback. I think this is very important. When you write the proposal, and I am also in the other part writing different proposals, it takes time, but there is a moment when you read again and again and you cannot find any kind of failure in your proposal. If you share your proposal with, other colleagues within your entity, or even, if it's a consortium with the other members, they can, read and find this kind of improvements in your proposal. So basically it's something that you need to take into account. You need to also check, all other documents, for instance, the SACRAG agreement, to check again the eligibility requirements of the proposal, and be sure, with this kind of final checklist, that you are filling and fulfilling all the criteria, and you are answer to all the evaluation criteria that evaluators should follow to evaluate or to find or select for funding your proposal, and this is very important. And to finalize, some final tips. This is mainly related to our platform and our goals. So first of all, remember to submit your proposal and your application before the deadline. This is, the basic thing. But sometimes it happens that you are, writing your application, filling the tool, save the draft a lot of times, but then you forgot to click the submit button. If you are not submitting your proposal, the evaluators cannot evaluate your proposal. So this is very, very important. You know that you can submit your proposal, when you have all the sections filled. So check that you are not missing anything in your proposal. You can get support from your partner or other team members adding in our platform the option of contributors, and you can submit the proposal anytime and the times that you need before the deadline. So the last proposal submitted should be the one that will be evaluated. So basically, this is the tips, the general tips that I would like to share with you. And now I would like to present you Pedro Arques. Pedro Arques today is representing Agora DIH, that is the DIH in the region of Murcia in Spain. Pedro has a lot of experience with Cascade Funding because they are applying to different open calls. And what I asked to Pedro as winner, but also as non-winning, is to share, all the best practice winning the proposal, but also to share with you what are the failures they found in the proposals that were not funded. So Pedro, thank you very much. Welcome to this webinar, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Graciela. My name is Pedro Arques. Good morning from the kitchen. Okay, we are here to try to share with you our experience, how to cook this recipe, what we do in the kitchen in order to be successful and to get our customers satisfied. So let me share with you my presentation. I hope you can read. You can see now. It's okay, Graciela?
Yes, it's okay, Pedro. Let's go.
Okay, let's go. Yes, my name is Pedro Arques. I work in Agora DIH. Agora DIH is a DIH, digital innovation hub in the southeast of Spain. Okay, we are 5 years old, and we are acting, working every day like a one-stop shop. Most of you know this concept, in order to connect to our region, our ecosystem, with a lot of DigiConnect initiative, Cascade Funding, AIDS Payment 2020 opportunities, and also industry at the ministry level in Spain. So this is our principal work, because we are the connection for a large ecosystem in the region of Murcia that is very complex, well, at least as everyone has, and we add one point of contact for Europe, for this innovation ecosystem that involves a lot of universities, companies, associations, and interest in the digitalization. Digitalization is our focus, and this is what we have been done during these 5 years, helping companies to digitalize, and also helping companies to get funding in the digitalization process. So what is Cascade Funding? Trying to answer. Cascade Funding for us is a shortcut, is a way to get to our destiny, digitalization, faster than Horizon Europe. That is another way, but it takes more time. So it's an opportunity for, sorry, I got a problem. It's an opportunity for us to get money to the digitalization more easier than going to a Eurozone Europe program. So what is the difference? The difference is that you have to submit less content. You have that in Eurozone, you have to work in test basis. You have to look for a consortium that is short compared to Eurozone Europe. Most of the time you work in an experimentation, you don't develop the platform, and you are talking about project of 6 or 12 months instead of 3 years, okay? So if you compare the money that you receive, this is something that it's a very good opportunity, because in less time you receive less money, but it's more or less the same ratio that Horizon Europe. So, and regarding the justification, this is more simple to justify because you use lump sum. That is a concept that is very easy for the companies and for DIs to justify in these cases. So it's a way, it's a shortcut to get to the money. Trying to explain our experience in the kitchen is that we can classify, this is our point of view, our personal point of view, we can classify the actual cascade funding opportunities in three types or categories of opportunities. One at the left is the DIH network. It's opportunities where DIHs is the main core of the call. It is focused on to build a DIH network at European level with a lot of opportunities, and DIHs can apply and must be the leader of this appliance. Coordinating with another SMEs or universities or competence centers in order to make evangelists or make promotion or diffusion of the digitalization in your network. There are some examples of these kind of open calls, for example, DIH World, DNH, Smart Hub, Boogie, where you can apply as DI network, DI Digital Innovation Hub, and the most important is that you complete your service and you grow your Digital Innovation Hub. But in parallel, the most common is the experimentation type of open calls. In Cascade Funding, most of the time you have to experimentate and you have to coordinate with SMEs or mid-caps in order to demonstrate the use of a platform in use cases, in sector, and the role of DIH here is not so important. The role of DIH is to give test support, demo lab, or try to replicate this, tracking this experiment in your region. This is something that you have to do in collaboration. And another role that is happening in another type of platform, or in another type of cascade funding, is when you apply with to a open call that is focused to the platform development. Okay, this is something that it is also happen when the project is looking for SMEs that are enabled, or entrepreneurs that are enabled, ICT enabled, and they want to update, upgrade the platform to get more features and to be more market oriented. So the collaboration with the Digital Innovation Hub has to be in terms of mentoring or business development to be complemented with the entrepreneurs or the SMEs. So this you got some example here, including the ones that we show last 7th of April. Okay, you can see the record. Okay, and the platform or the opportunity that we got there, we are focused on the experimentation of the platform AI for AU. You can go back to the before session and see about the opportunities of implementation together with SMEs and Digital Innovation Hub. The idea here is not to explain so much this, but how to apply to these opportunities and how to apply to other opportunities from our point of view. So let me share with you what I think, how to cook the recipe that Graciela explained us so fine, and what we do first and what we take care of the during the cooking of the recipe. So at the beginning, the most important thing for us is to read. So after that, another thing that Graciela mentioned it is look for a consortium. A partner search is so important to do because you have to select carefully the partner, and it takes time to know what is the ideal candidate for this application, and then write. You can do it in parallel, but try to do it sequentially because write is so important, and we can have several errors during the write. So we will comment what we find as common error during the application of every proposal to Cascade Funding. So this is a guide. I will try to be fast because we don't have so many time. But first time when you start, please read carefully the guide for applicants. Okay, try to identify the category that I mentioned before and take a look in what is the eligibility, because you can get surprised. You can get surprised because sometimes you can participate or depending on several conditions that are very high during the guide application. So try to take care of related company restriction, mid-cap size, SMS assessment, and everything. So understand also very well what are the funding rules and the payment mechanism milestone. You have to communicate this. Okay, so another more important document is the grant agreement. It gives you clues. Okay, it's important to know who is the prime contractor and what are the JUPIT certification methodology that they are following. Most of the time is lump sum, so this is very easy as commented before. So and finally, understand the main project. Okay, try to go to the information before. Where is the project described, the portal web of the project. Try to understand what is the consortium partner, why are they are there, and what are the rules. Okay, take a look in all the documentation. The project deliverables is very good for me. I understand architecture and previous experiments, so I take a lot of information from that. Okay, and also complete, as mentioned Graciela, with info days, H22 2020 programs, and other projects that are in parallel initiatives. So it is very important before to read. Okay. Let's go. A moment. Okay. The second thing that you have to do is look for a partner. Look for a partner is very important. Okay. You are going to be you as DIH, you are going to be the leader in this proposal. So it is important that it's complemented with you and have a role complementing in the supply chain of the solution. Okay, if you are a developer, transfer technology, you will have to look for any industry, or otherwise you have to look for business consultant. You have to be a business consultant in a case that the SME is an integrator or an ICT. Okay, so it is quite important also to understand what are the mandatory activities that the project is telling to you. Okay, and you have to communicate to this partner what they have to do, to be compliant. Okay, so save problem also from the beginning of the funding limits. Okay, from the beginning, communicate the funding limits or the vision that the project that the open call has. Okay, in order to solve uncertainty in the partner. Okay, this is important for me. We act always as coordinator when look for partners, because it is important that you come with an idea, but open but fixed. Okay, because if you don't have a fixed idea what to do, okay, sure we are going to have deviation of the recipe or deviation of what it is intended to do. Okay, so another thing that we do is to plan a draft of the project, more or less with 3 or 4 activities or work packets. Okay, and also another tips that is happened to me is that there are administrative issues. So take care that the SMEs are declared self-assessment, has a peak, or are graded, are registered in the ICAS portal. So this is quite important also. And now, once you read and you get the partner, okay, then the another thing and the most important thing is to write. Write is taking care a lot of things. So, for example, as mentioned from Graciela, evaluator is taking in your mind. The evaluator is very important. So make a table of the punctuation to follow during the writing. Okay, and try to assign points to every title or capital that you have. Think about your project idea. It is quite important that you think that you are not the only one. Google, search in Google, get a truly a trusty statute of art or what another companies are doing. Okay, in your idea. Take investigation articles, for example, ResearchGate or EU initiative parallel with your idea in order to get a complete statute of art. So another thing that you have to do is take in your mind your core objective. The core objective are usually at the beginning of the guide of applicant, also in the portal web. Make a table and try to be compliant to all the objectives when you write. So split then your experiment in executable tasks and assign tasks to your partners. Try to do a mix, responsibles, okay, but also all the partners try to work in most of the in more all the work packet. Of course, assign leaders in basic in the profiles, okay, and avoid subcontracting. That's very important. Then finally, I write the project plan, okay, and be careful also to have activity clear, because evaluators have not many time and they are going to look for this important part, and there are a lot of errors that we don't. I also have done many times when I write the project plan. So another tips is keep in mind the technology readiness level. Sometimes the on-call ask for it, but sometimes you can use it by yourself. And when you finish, take a read again of your proposal, share with another one, as Graciela mentioned, and think very much about the impact of the proposal. Okay, what is the impact of this proposal in this call to the partners, to the European Unity, to the initiative, to the program, to your company?
Pedro, you have 3 minutes left. Okay.
5 minutes. Okay, thank you very much, Laura. 2 slides more, okay? 3 slides more. So this is a list of errors that I want to share with you, okay? And that Digital Innovation Hub, like us, do most of the time. So there are errors in the consortium. For example, the competence of the partner are not well explained or not interact. Okay, role and roles, and the idea description, for example, is not detailed, so specific. There is no added value and no innovation level. Also, in the impact, what will happen is that we are not measuring through KPIs the business impact, okay? So there is no clear market opportunities or growth or how the results of the project are gonna be shared with the market in order to improve the business of the SME, or also there is no specific segmentation or general analysis, or we are using the wrong market analysis. So finally, this is something, this list I'm gonna share with you, don't worry. But finally, we have also common errors in the project time. The project time has mistyped, timeline is not clear, and this is not linked with the activity that you mentioned before. Okay, you do you have an objective to develop, and you develop in the project plan, you develop another thing or experiment or something like that. So this is very clear. This is happened many times, and at the end, what is happening is that the budget is not clear per partner, because one partner has more activities and less budget, and another partner has less activity and a lot of budget. So this is a common error that gives a clue that the proposal is not well done. Okay, so don't worry. Sorry for the time. I had not many time. The content will be published, and also this is recorded. And I'm here right now. I hope to answer question. So also together with Graciela.
Thank you very much, Pedro. Now is the time for your questions. While you are writing your questions in the chat, I would like to make the first question to you, Pedro, because you have a lot of experience, you know, as DIA supporting applications. The ones that, of course, the ones that they are individually for DIHs, some of the ones you highlight in your slide are single applications. But what happens when you are in a consortium with a company from your region, from Murcia, applying to this kind of open calls? How is the approach? Who is doing what? So I understand for your presentation that you are leading this proposal, and you are the one highlighting the opportunity, looking for the company to, you know, to be partnered with you in these applications. What is your experience, you know, supporting the company? I imagine that in most of the cases you are writing applications for them, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, of course. What is happening is that most of the time the company and companies or ICT enables ICT companies are not taking care of these opportunities, because they think that Europe is very complex. So we have to give this first step, try to explain them what is the open call opportunity, what they have to do, okay, and try to convince them that this is something that they can really trust, and they easy apply in order to get in their digitalization process, okay. Usually the call is not well explained, the call is not arriving or at this kind of SMEs, because it's in English, we are in Spain, we have a language problem, they are working day by day in their problems. So try to explain this opportunity is crucial. It's something that is hard for us, but we have to do this first step at all. So this is something that when we understand the call and we explain what they have to do, this is something that they really start to think about it, and finally we get appliance. Okay.
Okay, I have another question. I know the answer, but I think it's also interesting for the DIHs that they are attending today to this webinar. You as DIH, you are one of the members. You are from the team. That is one of the competence centers that they are part for the DIH, but you have another partners in your DIH. And this kind of proposal, they are, as you mentioned, they are different kind of proposals, different kind of open calls, and not all the time you need the same DIH members. How is your approach within the Agora DIH, to support the companies in these different kind of proposals? Is always the same partner supporting a company? How do you manage within your consortium this kind of support to the SMEs mainly, that are mainly the core of these proposals?
Yes, well, it is something that every partner has experience in and we have something that can be sometimes duplicate, but there are a lot of opportunities during the year. The most important thing is that you get the right partner with the right SME. Okay, this is something that it depends of experience before. It depends of the services that our DIH panel is offering, but we try more or less try to involve all our DIH panels in a lot of open calls, Cascade Funding, and general Horizon Europe calls. So at the end, I think everyone is participating more or less. Everyone has opportunities during the years, okay, during the year. So there is no a clear rule, okay, but we receive some kind of question for help for another partners, and we give them help in order to apply consultancy services during the apply, and try that the Agora DIH act as a trademark, as a consortium, a real consortium, in order to manage all the opportunities and don't lose opportunities for the region of Murcia. This is our objective, try to involve everyone.
Okay, thank you very much. There is no question, so let's move to the next speaker. We come back with Izabela, and Izabela is, as she mentioned before when she introduced herself, is a senior project manager at FundingBox. She has a lot of experience with Cascade Funding since a lot of years ago, because she's one of the managers, for instance, of one of the projects that is sponsored today, the webinar. So she's going to explain right now how is the compliance for the Cascade Funding projects, and as we explained, the simple it is to apply the lot of opportunities. We would like to share with you also how is the compliance and basically the methodology that we as FundingBox using in our project. So Isa, the floor is yours.
Perfect. Thank you for the introduction, Graciela. Yes, so from the experience of the project manager, I'll tell you a bit more about how it works once you are actually also inside of the program. So I think it also helps to write winning proposals when you know what's happened after. So basically, most of the support programs, of course, they are all customized per technology that is accelerated or that is supported per consortium. So As Pedro already mentioned, it's important to read the guide for applicants, where usually it's described, okay, what you can expect. But the standard one, I would say, is divided usually in 3 phases. That the first one is the preparation, the short one, during which the selected applicants have to create the individual mentoring plan. And this is kind of extension of the proposal, because based on what is written in the selected proposal, usually then the applicants have to plan in details already with the consortium partners, or with the with the mentors that they are assigned to, the tasks to be executed. So they create kind of Gantt for all the support program. And what is important also, the KPIs to be reached that will be evaluated and will be actually related to the payments during the milestones review that will be established at the beginning of the program. So this has to be clear. And also the detailed budget. So I will tell you a bit more about these two points, okay, the milestones and the budget, because it helps to prepare the application, as I mentioned. So this is the first phase, and just to close, there's always the second phase that usually is a bit longer, the development, and then there is the last one, scalability, where usually we add also the business support, okay, to actually already prepare the mature technology to go to the market. But as I mentioned, it really depends, and it's always adjusted because there are different technologies to be supported. But talking about the milestones review, so you remember I mentioned this KPI, this individual mentoring plan. So usually there's fixed KPI milestone reviews during all the program at the end of each stage. Okay, so usually at the end of stage 2 or at the end of stage 3, there is this gate, as we call also, or milestone review. And that is when the companies or the beneficiaries have to submit all the documents. That usually there's some template to reporting template, the easy one. We try to not give too much administrative burden on the applicants, but still we have to somehow prove, right, that they reached the expected results. And then usually there's 1 week that when mentors have to review these results and score them. And at the end, there is the consortium partners that validate the decision and the payment is released. Okay, so this is in short usually. It's simplified in this process, it's adapted in each project, but usually it works like this. Here you can see also how in most of the projects, what is expected at this milestone review. So as I mentioned, performance indicators that we call also KPIs are usually have the biggest importance when evaluating the milestone. But then also there is important point about the deliverables, so it's quality and delivery. And then there's also small points, more percentage about deadline compliance, just to also keep all the beneficiaries with a program, following the program, and make sure that they do it on time. So basically these 3 elements are scored by mentors, and then the total score between 0 and 10, and then usually in most of the program it's 7 to pass the threshold and to get the validation and to receive the payment and pass to the next stage. Okay, so this is how it works. What happens if they have less than 7? Well, of course it can happen. Then usually the selection committee in consultation with the mentor have to decide what should be done, or if we should give them the extension, for instance, because sometimes it happens that, I don't know, they needed some component to actually develop their solution, and the component could not be delivered because of the problems of delivery. So if this is such a small problem, then usually there is an extension allowed, but sometimes it might be that beneficiary just stopped working, right? That they just stopped developing the solution, then of course they will be excluded. It's really case by case, but I'm just giving you the example that of course it's in our interest to support. We are here to support these beneficiaries, so we actually want them to follow and to give the needed support. So this is always adjusted. So these milestones and this procedure is established to receive or redistribute the funding. And as you know, we are talking here about the cascade funding. Pedro already mentioned the lump sum concept, that it's quite important, and that's why I was telling also you about the deliverables and these report templates, because in each milestone we review their performance and implementation of the project and not their invoices. So they receive agreed amount for each stage, but we do not review their invoices. We just review the implementation, and this is the key for us. Of course, all the beneficiaries have to keep their invoices and everything related to funding and its spending in case of audit. But this is always something we underline, but we do not control it during the project, just to focus on actually implementation and the results. And here are three points that, of course, well, these spendings have to correspond to this lump sum. So this is what they plan at the beginning of the program in individual mentoring plan. Then it always has to correspond to the tasks that are related with the technology. So, of course, there are many travels, for instance, but of course, if there are some travels to, let's say, Hawaii, that is not related with executing the project, then of course, this cost is not eligible. Okay, so in case of the audit, they have to be able to prove that this was actually needed to execute the project. And then also, well, the cost has to incur during the project program duration. Okay, so this is important that everything has to be spent during the support program. Here is the example. So not getting to the detail, but what I wanted to tell you, well, there are three key elements for the budget that when they're preparing the proposal, usually are requested just at the start. These are the personnel costs, travel costs, and consumables. These are the three key elements. From the personnel costs, it's important. Usually, well, they should take their accounting in the company that they take to calculate the personnel costs. But we also have some European references in case beneficiary does not want to include that in the proposal. Travel costs and consumables, yeah, these are also the standard ones. And then you calculate the overheads, which is 25% of the sum of these three concepts. And then there's also a possibility to subcontract, but also, as Pedro mentioned, it should be the minimum and only necessary, because the rule is that, well, the funding is dedicated to the beneficiary that is executing the work. Okay, so subcontracting should be the minimum. And here we want to pay also your attention, because in some projects there are funding rates. Okay, so that means that the company should plan the costs, but according, of course, to the reality, so they are feasible. But then the funding that they will receive is calculated at 70% of these costs. Okay, so here in this example, you can see that the costs declared are 36,000. So from the 70%, they will receive 25, which is actually the maximum allowed in this example, okay, in this open call. So this is something that may be difficult to explain now or during the webinar, but I'm just pointing that out, that it's important to pay attention to this as well. And here you have, usually we also include in the documents, in the open call documents, these cost references, which, as I mentioned, are based on European standards. But for instance, the average personnel cost can be calculated according to the company rules. But we always have this in case someone needs to reference for preparing the budget. And Pedro also mentioned the funding limits. In some projects, there are funding limits that they can get in the project. So if they apply to different open calls in one project, there is usually 100,000 or 200,000 of the maximum per entity that they should pay attention to. Sometimes there are projects that come from group of the projects like I4MS, which is the concentrated on the digitalization manufacturing sector. So there are also some limits. And there's important thing that also some SMEs apply to many projects, and they should pay attention to double funding rule. So they should never be funded for the same thing. So even if there is the same technology, they should be able to prove that actually it has been funded before in another project. So if they apply with the same technology to the next project, they should prove that actually they will do something new. Okay, this is something that we also review with the selected applicants, so it's important to take into account. And to summarize, yes, the budget should demonstrate the implementation of the project. We do not review invoices, but its implementation, and they should always pay attention to the funding limits and funding rate when preparing the budget. And from my side, it's everything. I hope it's helpful, and thank you for listening. And I believe now we have time for questions, but I'm not sure if there are any in the chat.
Yeah, there is no, but I think that is, you know, very interesting. Your perspective, Izabela, taking into account, you know, the tips that you mentioned now, because it's a question also for eligibility, as we mentioned. You know, all this information is within the documents for the open call, but sometimes, you know, people is writing the proposal, they get the funding, and then when implement, they realize that they are, you know, above the limits. So, you know, it's a pity if you get the funding with this competitive process. You will fail at the end because of this limit. But also, you know, to know about the stages for, you know, for the implementation program, because at the end it's also a guideline for writing the proposal to establish the phases of the work package or activities of the project linked to these, you know, the stages, the duration, and so on. So for me, it's very important, you know, to not only take into account, you know, the open call and this kind of guidelines when writing the proposal, but also put in the implementation mode, because if you know how to implement, you know, the projects there to get the funding, you can also reflect these activities at these points in your application. So this is also very useful, especially related to eligibility, but also for the budget, because this is also very important. Mm-hmm. I think that there is no question, so thank you very much for your time. If you have any question, we will like to share with you the presentations and the video in the spaces that is included in the chat. And yeah, don't forget that there is, I don't know if we want to present the third webinar, but this is a series of 3 webinars. Today we have the second one, but there is still a third and final webinar about how to build your alliance in the EU AI ecosystem. So we encourage you to participate also in this webinar, and thank you very much for being here. And for sure, yeah.
Yes.
Sorry, Pedro.
Yes, what is the date for the third webinar?
Is 4th of May at 10.
Okay, thank you.
So thank you very much. Thank you again, Pedro and Izabela, for sharing with all the attendees your experience, writing the application, implementing the projects, and supporting applicants to apply the funding. And I hope that you know, all these kind of tips help you with your receipt, and you can book a very strong receipt for your application. Thank you very much.
Our pleasure. Thank you to you.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.